Imagine this for a second. Just picture it. You are standing on a planet that is literally visibly blue from space.
The pale blue dot.
Exactly. 3/4 of the entire surface is just water, vast, deep oceans. It feels infinite, right? It feels like a resource that could never, ever possibly run out.
It feels like the definition of abundance.
It does. But then you look at the data, and the prediction is that by 2025, so basically now, nearly 2 billion people are going to be living in absolute water scarcity.
It's a staggering juxtaposition. It's almost hard to wrap your head around that contradiction.
It's a high-stakes paradox that just doesn't seem to make any sense. How can a resource be renewable, abundant, and yet completely scarce all at the same time? That is the paradox of abundance.
And that paradox, it isn't just a philosophical problem, you know. It is the ultimate irony of the natural world. We are awash in water, yet we are thirsty. And that specific tension is exactly what we are unpacking today. But before we dive into the hydrological cycle, the geopolitics of rivers, and the architectural genius of ancient India, we have a very special mission for this deep dive.
That is so right. This isn't just a casual chat about the environment or, a news roundup. This deep dive is a full, comprehensive summary for UPSC aspirants.
Specifically focused.
Specifically focused by the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel. We are taking the content from NCERT Class 10 Geography, Chapter 3, Water Resources, and we are not just summarizing it, we are deconstructing it.
We're taking that static text and breathing life into it, but more importantly, we are linking it directly to the exam. Because reading the text, that's one thing.
Anyone can do that.
But understanding how to use that text to score marks in GS Paper 1 or 3, well, that's a completely different skill set. We want to bridge that gap between knowing and scoring.
Precisely. So, look, here's a huge, humble request to you listening right now. Please, please subscribe to the Simplified UPSC by PPP channel. Your subscription supports the creation of this content.
It really does. It allows us to keep digging through the archives to bring you these insights.
It means the world. And if you are capable and you find real value in what we're doing, please consider supporting the team on Patreon. It really helps keep these deep dives coming.
And we have to give a warm, genuine shout out to all of our current supporters and patrons. You are the engine behind this entire operation. We see you and we appreciate you so much. You allow us to do the research that makes all this possible.
Absolutely. Also, don't forget to like the video or audio, and please share your valuable comments. We really want to know what you think. Did a particular point click for you? Let us know.
We read all of them.
We do. Now, here is an important notification. If you want the notes from today's session along with practice previous year questions, or PYQs, they are available for free on our public Telegram channel.
But for those of you who want to really level up, there is a private Telegram library.
Okay, this is the next level.
It is. That gives you access to all the videos in this series at once, organized premium notes, detailed summaries, extra PYQs, and this is the big one model mains answers.
Which is invaluable.
Invaluable. If you wanted to that library, just DM on the public Telegram channel to join.
Okay, housekeeping aside, let's get to the mission. We are deconstructing Chapter 3, Water Resources.
Right.
But we are doing it strategically.
Right.
We are going to connect the dots between the basic concepts in the text and the high-level analysis that the UPSC exam demands. We are talking about linking this static topic to actual PYQs from 2013, 2015, 2016, and even the 2025 paper.
That's the strategy. We want to show you step by step how a simple sentence in the Class 10 textbook translates into a 15-mark answer in the mains. It's all about value extraction.
So let's start with that paradox I mentioned, the paradox of abundance. The text lays it out clearly. Water is a renewable resource.
It is. And it's renewable because of the machinery of the planet itself, the hydrological cycle. It's this beautiful, closed-loop system.
Right. You've got evaporation, condensation, precipitation.
Surface runoff. The groundwater gets recharged. It's a continuous closed loop. In theory, the amount of water on Earth is constant. We should never, ever run out.
In theory, that's the key phrase, isn't it? Because if you just look at the cycle, it seems perfect. But then the text hits us with the numbers game. And when you look at the breakdown of all that water, the abundance starts to look a lot like a mirage.
It really does. The source material highlights that 96.5% of the total volume of the world's water is estimated to exist as oceans.
96.5%.
And in that salt water, it is saline. It is unusable for drinking or agriculture without massive, really energy-intensive desalination processing.
So it's like having a giant swimming pool you can't drink from. Nearly 97% is off the table immediately. That leaves us with what, roughly 2.5% is fresh water?
A tiny, tiny sliver of the pie.
Just a sliver.
And even that 2.5% isn't all just sitting in a bucket waiting for us to scoop it up. A huge chunk of it, about 70% of that fresh water, is locked up.
Locked up.
In ice sheets and glaciers, in Antarctica, Greenland, and the mountainous regions of the world. So the water that is actually accessible, the fresh surface water that we can easily get to in rivers and lakes, is a fraction of a fraction.
Wow, that really puts the fragility into perspective. We see all this blue on the map, but we can't drink the map. And this brings us to the concept of scarcity.
Right.
Now, I want to challenge the mental image our listeners might have. When we say water scarcity in the context of India, what is the first thing that usually pops into your head?
Well, if you go by popular media, it's a very specific, almost iconic image. We visualize the deserts of Rajasthan.
Of course.
We see women balancing those earthen pots, the matkas on their heads, walking for miles across cracked earth to a distant well. And let's be clear, that is a brutal, brutal reality for many people. That is a form of scarcity.
A very real one. But the NCERT text argues that scarcity is much more complex than just no rain. It's not just about geography.
No, not at all. And this is a key distinction for the exam. We need to distinguish between quantitative scarcity and qualitative scarcity.
Okay, break that down for us.
Quantitative is what you just described, variations in seasonal and annual precipitation. It simply doesn't rain enough in that specific geography. That's the Rajasthan example. But the modern problem, the one that is really tricky for policymakers and for us as citizens, is qualitative scarcity.
This is the idea that you can have plenty of water, but you still can't use it.
Exactly. You might be in a region with ample water resources. Maybe you have a river flowing right through your city, a big one. But if that water is polluted, if it's toxic, if it's full of industrial effluent or untreated sewage,
You're still thirsty.
you're facing scarcity just as severe as someone in a desert. The text explicitly mentions that many of our cities are examples of this. You look at a map, you see a river, but the people there are buying bottled water.
So what is driving this? Is it just that there are more people? Is it purely a population game?
Population is a massive factor, obviously. I mean, large and growing populations mean more demand, not just for drinking, but for food production.
Right, more irrigation.
To feed a growing India, we need more grain, which means more irrigation. But the text adds some nuance here. It's also about unequal access among social groups. Not everyone gets the same share of the tap.
That's a huge social justice issue.
It is. But the source text points a finger at something else too, something structural. Post-independence, industrialization, and urbanization.
The urban trap.
That's a very fitting term for it. We have these multiplying urban centers, high density, but look at the lifestyle. The text points out that the urban lifestyle requires massive amounts of energy. And where does a significant portion of India's energy come from?
Hydroelectric power. From the water itself.
Exactly. The text notes that much of our energy comes from hydropower plants. So you have industries that are heavy users of water for their processes, cooling, cleaning, manufacturing, and then you have the power grid that runs those industries, which also needs water to generate the electricity.
It's a compounding demand. It's a feedback loop.
It is. You are using water to make the goods, and then you're using more water to make the power to make the goods.
And then you have the housing societies. I think everyone listening in a metro city can relate to this. You see it everywhere. Every building has its own groundwater pumping system.
The text mentions this specifically, which I think is fascinating for a school textbook. It's very observant of modern reality.
It's very turned.
In housing societies or colonies, they have their own groundwater pumping devices to meet their water needs. And this leads to massive overexploitation. We are literally sucking the earth dry from beneath our feet to sustain this urban density. The water table goes down, and suddenly, a region that had plenty of water is facing a crisis.
Now let's pause here. This is where we need to put our UPSC hats on. We have the concept. Urbanization and industrialization lead to scarcity. How does this connect to the exam? This is the crucial part.
Okay, let's look at the 2015 GS Paper 1, question 17. The question asked, the states of Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, and Uttarakhand are reaching the limits of their ecological carrying capacity due to tourism. Critically evaluate.
Interesting. So on the surface, it's asking about tourism in the mountains. A student might look at that and think, okay, this is a question about tourism policy, maybe infrastructure. But how does that link to water resources?
Think about what we just discussed regarding urbanization. Tourism is essentially temporary urbanization. It's seasonal urbanization.
That's a great way to put it.
When you build a hotel in Shimla or Manali, you are bringing an urban lifestyle into a very fragile ecological zone. You're bringing flush toilets, daily showers, swimming pools, laundry services, and high energy consumption.
You are basically transplanting the demand of Delhi or Mumbai right into the heart of the Himalayas.
Correct. The NCERT point about multiplying urban centers applies directly here. Those mountain states are our water towers. But when you overload them with tourists demanding urban-level resources, you stress the water systems to their breaking point. You deplete the local springs. You generate sewage that goes straight into the rivers.
So you can't answer that question effectively without understanding the pressure of urban-style demand on resources, which is the core argument of this chapter.
Absolutely not. It's about applying the principle of urban stress to a specific context. And there was another one in 2015, right? Question 18.
There was.
Yes. How far do you agree that the behavior of the Indian monsoon has been changing due to humanizing landscapes?
Humanizing landscapes. That's such a poetic phrase for a destructive process.
It basically means urbanization, industrialization, and changing land use patterns. The source text talks about how we manage water and how we've altered the natural flow of things. When you strip vegetation for cities, which is literally humanizing the landscape, you change the surface runoff.
The water just flows away instead of seeping in.
Exactly. You change the evaporation rates, you create urban heat islands. All of this ultimately impacts the local climate and, yes, the behavior of the monsoon. The link is direct and undeniable.
So the static text gives you the what urbanization causes scarcity and alters hydrology. The exam asks you how does that change the monsoon or the carrying capacity of the Himalayas?
That is the bridge you have to build to your answer. You take the Class 10 fact and you apply it to the GS mains problem.
Brilliant. Let's move on to part 2 of our deep dive. We can't talk about water in India without talking about the big engineering solutions.
Oh, the dams.
The dams, the temples of modern India, though I notice the source text sticks to the more neutral term, multi-purpose river projects.
Right, and it's important to note that this isn't a new idea. The text mentions that from ancient times we have been constructing sophisticated hydraulic structures. We're talking dams built of stone rubble, reservoirs, lakes, embankments, canals.
So this is in our DNA, so to speak.
It is. The concept of integrated water resources management isn't a Western import. It has deep, deep roots here.
But the modern interpretation, these massive concrete dams, was supposed to be the silver bullet for independent India.
It was. And the logic on paper was sound. Impound water, use it for irrigation to feed the nation, generate electricity to power the industries, control floods to save lives, and, hey, breed fish for food.
One project, multiple benefits, hence multi-purpose.
Exactly.
But the narrative in the text shifts pretty heavily here. It goes from, these are great solutions to, wait a minute, there are serious, serious consequences. The tide turns against the big dams.
It does. The scrutiny has become intense over the decades, and it starts with the ecological impact. When you dam a river, you are doing so much more than just stopping water. You are regulating its flow. But a river isn't just H2O moving downhill.
It's a living system.
It's a conveyor belt for sediment.
Sedimentation. This is a key technical term the text uses. Why is that sediment flow so important?
The sediment is the nutrient base for the entire ecosystem downstream. It's the soil for the floodplains. When a dam blocks the flow, that sediment just piles up at the bottom of the reservoir.
And what happens downstream?
The text describes the result downstream as rockier stream beds. The river is starved of its natural building blocks.
Which sounds bad for the fish.
It's terrible for aquatic life. The riverbed becomes a poorer habitat. Benthic organisms, the critters living at the bottom, lose their home. And physically, the dam fragments the river. It puts up a giant wall.
Right.
The text notes that this makes it extremely difficult for aquatic fauna to migrate, especially for spawning.
So you're blocking the nutrient flow downstream and you're blocking the life flow upstream.
It's a double whammy.
Yeah.
If the fish can't move upstream to lay eggs, the population collapses. But it's not just the fish getting displaced.
It's people. This is the social impact, and the text touches on this quite strongly.
It does. And this has been a massive trigger for some of India's most important social movements. The source text specifically lists the Narmada Bachao Andolan and the Tehri Dam Andolan.
These were huge defining movements in India's environmental history.
And they were rooted in a very basic, very powerful grievance: large-scale displacement of local, often tribal communities.
So the people who live there, who depend on the river, they're the first ones to lose everything.
They had to give up their land, their livelihood, their culture, their access to resources. The text points out the painful irony. Locals make these sacrifices for the national gain, but they often don't see any of the benefits. The electricity lights up a factory in a distant city. The water irrigates cash crops hundreds of miles away.
And the locals are left with the loss.
They're left with the loss. Speaking of irony, there's another one the text mentions regarding flood control.
Right. These dams are explicitly built to control floods, but the text says they have actually triggered floods. How does that logic even work?
It goes right back to that sedimentation we talked about. Because the reservoir gets filled with silt over time, its capacity to hold water actually decreases. It becomes shallower.
So it can't hold as much during a heavy monsoon.
Exactly. So when there is excessive rainfall, the dam operators have no choice but to release massive amounts of water to save the physical structure of the dam from collapsing.
So the safety valve becomes the danger itself.
Precisely. The text cites the floods in Gujarat and Maharashtra in 2006 as prime examples where the sudden release of water from dams actually aggravated the flood situation. They were meant to be shields, but they became cannons.
And we can't ignore the pollution aspect. The text is quite blunt here. It says India's rivers, especially the smaller ones, have all turned into toxic streams.
It paints a very grim picture. And even the big ones, the ones we revere like the Ganga and Yamuna, are struggling. They are overloaded with domestic and industrial waste.
This connects beautifully to the PYQs. Let's look at 2013, GS Paper 3, question 21.
I have it right here. The question was, enumerate the national water policy of India. Taking River Ganges as an example, discuss the strategies which may be adopted for river water pollution control and management.
That is a direct hit. The text identifies the problem toxic streams, Ganga and Yamuna pollution. The exam asks for the solution.
And the solution requires a deep understanding of the problem. If you know that the pollution comes from industrial effluence and urbanization, which we discussed in part 1, then your strategies for the answer have to address those root causes.
You can't just say, we'll clean it.
No, you can't clean the Ganga without stopping the urban waste that the insert describes. Your answer needs to talk about effluent treatment plants, about regulating industrial discharge, about managing that urban trap.
And there's a geopolitical angle, too. 2016 GS Paper 1, question 18, the one about the Indus Water Treaty.
A classic. Present an account of the Indus Water Treaty and examine its ecological, economic, and political implications. Now, the NCERT text mentions that water is a renewable resource, but it also discusses how we manage rivers.
And when a river crosses a border,
Integrated water resources management becomes international diplomacy. The ecological impact of damming the Indus affects both sides. The political implications are tied to who controls the tap.
so if India builds a dam that traps sediment or alters the flow, it directly impacts the ecosystem in agriculture in Pakistan. The ecological principles in the NCERT apply across borders.
They absolutely do. And looking ahead, we have the 2025 GS Paper 1, question 17.
Discuss the distribution and density of population in the Ganga River Basin with special reference to land, soil, and water resources.
This brings it all together. Why is the population density so high in the Ganga Basin? Because of the abundant water resources. But as we just learned, that high density leads to the toxic streams and the scarcity. It's a vicious cycle.
The resource attracts the population degrades the resource, and then the resource can no longer support the population.
It's a feedback loop of degradation.
So, okay, we have the paradox of abundance. We have the failure, or at least the severe complications of these large-scale dams. Where do we go from here? The text suggests a shift in perspective, a big one.
It suggests looking back to the past. Traditional water harvesting systems. The text frames this not as backwardness, but as a viable, decentralized, and often superior alternative.
Right, we move towards these massive centralized dams, but our ancestors had systems that were hyper-local and ecologically balanced.
They were brilliant. And what I love about this section of the text is the detail. It breaks it down by region. It wasn't a one-size-fits-all approach. It was bespoke engineering tailored to the landscape.
It had to be. Let's start with the hills.
In the western Himalayas, the text mentions Guls, or Kuls.
Wells and Kuls, these are diversion channels, right, not dams.
Exactly. Instead of damming the river and creating a huge reservoir, they just diverted water into these small channels for agriculture. It works with the gravity and the slope of the mountains. You take a stream, divert a portion of it along the contour of the hill, and bring it gently to your field.
Gentle engineering. I like that.
It is. Then you go to the floodplains of Bengal.
A completely different environment.
Totally different. There, they developed inundation channels. Since the rivers would flood naturally during the monsoon, they didn't build walls to keep the water out.
They let it in?
They built channels to direct that floodwater into their fields for irrigation. They didn't try to stop the flood, they harnessed it. They used its power.
That is a crucial difference in mindset, isn't it? Controlling nature versus working with nature. Now, let's go to the arid regions, Rajasthan. This is where the ingenuity really, really shines for me.
Oh, absolutely. In arid and semi-arid regions, they converted agricultural fields themselves into rain-fed storage structures. They allowed the water to stand and moisten the soil deeply.
How did that work?
The text introduces two key terms here that you should remember: Khadins in Jaisalmer and Johads in other parts of Rajasthan.
So the field itself becomes the reservoir.
In a way, yes. You build an embankment, usually earthen. The rain falls, it hits the embankment, and it collects in the field. It seeps down, recharging the soil moisture and the local groundwater. It's not about holding water in a tank. It's about putting it back into the earth, into the soil bank.
But the star of this section, for me anyway, has to be the tanka.
This tanka system is just fascinating. The text specifically mentions Bikaner, Falodi, and Barmer. These are tough, scorching hot environments.
Describe the tanka for us, because tank sounds like one of those black plastic cylinders on a roof. This is something else entirely.
Oh, this is a piece of architecture. It's an underground tank, usually built inside the main house or the courtyard, and the scale is impressive. The text describes one that was 6.1 meters deep, 4.27 meters long, and 2.44 meters wide.
That's the size of a bedroom.
A bedroom full of water right under your feet, underground.
And it's connected to the roof, I assume.
Yes, it's a rooftop rainwater harvesting system. The rain falls on the sloping roof, travels down a pipe, and goes directly into the tanka. But there is a very specific traditional practice mentioned that I find brilliant.
What's that?
They wouldn't collect the first spell of rain
Why not? Just let it run off.
to clean the roof and the pipes. The first rain washes away all the dust and dirt and bird droppings. Once that's done, they collect the subsequent showers.
That's incredibly smart. Simple, but smart. And they have a special name for this water.
They do. Palar Pane. The text is it is considered the purest form of natural water. And in a desert, that purity is literally life.
There was a bonus benefit too, right? Something beyond just drinking water.
Yes, thermal regulation. This is genius. Because the tanka is a massive body of water underground, it acts like a heat sink. It absorbs the heat from the house.
So it keeps the adjacent rooms cool?
It keeps them cool. In the scorching summer heat of Rajasthan, your water source is also your air conditioning. It's passive cooling at its best.
That is brilliant design. It solved two problems at once. But the text has a bit of a sad note here. It mentions the whole system is declining.
It is, unfortunately. And the reason is the Indira Gandhi Canal. Now that perennial water is available through the canal and pipelines, many people have stopped maintaining the tankas. It's just easier to turn a tap.
A loss of traditional knowledge.
A huge loss. However, the text notes that some houses still keep them because, and I love this detail, they do not like the taste of tap water. They actually prefer the taste of the palarpani.
So it's a cultural preference that's keeping the technology alive.
Exactly. A matter of taste.
So we've seen the ancient methods. But is this just history, or is it still relevant? This is where part 4 of our dive comes in, looking at modern adaptations.
This is where we see the comeback. The text gives a fantastic case study of a village called Gendathur in Mysuru, Karnataka.
Tell us about Gendathur.
It's described as a remote, backward village. But they completely buck the trend. They didn't wait for a government dam or a pipeline. Nearly 200 households in the village installed rooftop rainwater harvesting systems.
200 households? That's a significant adoption rate. That's a community effort.
It is, and the efficiency is incredibly high, 80% collection efficiency. The text breaks down the math a bit. It says with their rainfall, the net harvest for the village is 100,000 liters annually.
That sounds maybe a bit low for 200 houses. I'm looking at the source. It says, from the 200 houses, the net amount of rainwater harvested annually amounts to 1,000 liters. Maybe a typo in the source?
It could be. Or it could be a specific measure. But the key takeaway isn't the specific digit, it's the impact. The text says Gendathur earned the rare distinction of being rich in rainwater. In a country facing scarcity, they created abundance for themselves.
That's the real story. And there is one more example that I found visually stunning in the description. The bamboo drip irrigation system in Meghalaya.
This is a 200-year-old system.
Yeah.
It's the definition of low-tech but high-precision engineering. We usually think of drip irrigation as black plastic pipes and emitters, imported technology.
Right.
But here, they use nature. They tap into streams and spring water using bamboo pipes.
And this isn't just a short pipe from the stream to the field.
No, no, the water travels hundreds of meters.
Yeah.
They use the bamboo to create an elaborate channel, using gravity to guide it across the terrain.
And the flow control, how do they manage that?
That's the genius part.
Yeah.
The text says about 18 to 20 liters of water enters the system at the source. By the time it reaches the plant site at the end of the line,
Yes.
it is reduced to 20 to 80 drops per minute.
Drops per minute. That is incredible precision.
It's the original drip irrigation. No electricity, no plastics, zero waste, just bamboo and gravity delivering exactly what the plant needs, right at the root.
This connects directly to a specific PYQ from 2016, question 20.
In what way micro-watershed development projects help in water conservation in drought-prone and semi-arid regions of India?
This is exactly where a lot of students get stuck. They look for some technical, bureaucratic definition of micro-watershed. They think about government schemes.
But the answer is right here in this NCERT chapter. The Khadins, the Johads, the Tankas, these are micro-watershed development projects. They are decentralized, local systems that manage the water flow within a small catchment area.
So you use these examples in your answer.
Absolutely. If you use these examples from Class 10 in your GS Mains answer, you are grounding your theory in proven indigenous Indian reality. That is how you score marks. You don't just say, we should conserve water. You say, we should adopt systems like the Khadins of Jaisalmer, which convert agricultural fields into storage structures. Specificity wins every time.
So we've gone from the macro, the global paradox, to the micro, the bamboo drip. Let's try and bring this all together. What is the synthesis here?
The narrative arc of this chapter is really a lesson in humility, I think. We started with the myth of abundance, this idea that water is infinite. We then realized that the reality is scarcity, a scarcity driven by our own mismanagement, urbanization, and pollution.
And our first solution was to try and engineer our way out of it.
We tried to solve it with massive engineering, the large dams, but found that while they have benefits, they come with incredibly heavy ecological and social costs.
And the solution wasn't some futuristic high-tech gadget.
No, the solution was looking back, with respect, at the wisdom of traditional harvesting. Systems that work with the local ecology, not against it, whether it's the tanka in the desert or the Gendathur model in the south or the bamboo pipes in the northeast.
So the core lesson for the UPSC aspirant listening right now, what should they write in their notes?
Water management isn't just about building dams. It's about ecological balance. It's about pollution control. Remember that Ganga question? And it's about decentralized conservation, like rainwater harvesting. Your answers in the exam need to reflect that holistic view. It's not just civil engineering, it's social engineering and ecological respect, all rolled into one.
That is a powerful takeaway. Before we leave you with our final thought, I want to remind you one more time, this deep dive was brought to you by the Simplified UPSC by PPP channel. We are here to make your prep easier, more focused, and more effective.
Please subscribe. It really makes a difference and lets us know we're on the right track. And if you can, support us on Patreon. We want to keep digging deep into these topics for you.
A massive thank you again to our current supporters. You guys are rock stars. And don't forget the Telegram channels. The public channel has the free notes and those practice PYQs we mentioned throughout the discussion.
And for the serious aspirants, DM us to join the private library. Get the premium notes, the model mains answers, and the full archive. It's the toolkit you need to ace this exam.
Okay. Now, for the final provocative thought. We started with a paradox. Let's end with a question about the future.
We established that water is a renewable resource. Theoretically, it renews forever. But if that's true, why is it becoming a geopolitical weapon? We talked about the Indus Water Treaty.
Right.
Wars used to be fought over land. They were fought over ideology.
Yeah.
But as we look at the scarcity trends, the Palar Pani, that pure life-giving water, is becoming more valuable than oil.
So the question is, will the next global conflict be determined not by who has the biggest army, but by who controls the tap?
It's something to mull over.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
Keep learning.